Okay, so we're back. And honestly, I couldn't wait to get back to this because, as it turns out, this little hack always works and always veers off into something greater. And again, we may not fully see a developed story just yet. There's a lot of questions like, why is Stephen running in the middle of the night in the rain? Why is he disregarding his medical condition? Why is Emily willing to be so forgiving about Stephen's, well, you can say selfishness? And so far, one of the things that I've learned is to make a character likable, and obviously we haven't really made that effort here. We can feel sorry for him, right? He's under a lot of stress in the first page, in regards to, running out of breath and coming back from the rain. And there's some empathy that we can have for Stephen. But as the story develops, we come to the agreement that he's not a really nice guy, and Emily's kind of a pushover. She kind of forgives Stephen very quickly and kind of moves past the bigger issue. So at this point, we can do one of two things. We can either continue to develop this in an interesting way, and this is the kind of the breaking point, again, where this hack comes into play. Where we've reached a point where, like, okay, where can we take this story? Okay, so now I've kind of supposed I have kind of intervened and suggested that we look back 2 hours earlier to the event. And so maybe the 2 hours earlier isn't this what we're creating. It's even further than that. But to understand this, right, this is kind of interesting. I don't know where it's going to go, but we could go super title 5, we'll say 2, we already put it a day earlier. Okay, so what happened a day earlier that made this character veer off, right? And I'm kind of, I don't know, there's a lot of mental health stuff happening right now in the scope of, or the space of where we are. A lot of people struggling with anxiety and depression, and a lot of people struggling with financial burden. And so, we could really have a lot of fun, not in a fun way, but we can have somewhat of a fun time developing this character. So this can kind of serve, this little section here can kind of serve as like a window to something that led up to this. Okay. And so if I'm looking at my friend Steven, his alias Steven, I know that he recently had to leave a relationship, and he had to leave it because the relationship was very dominating on the other side, and so maybe there's an element of that. So we can say, a day earlier, we could go exterior. Now we'll go from night to day. So let's open up the lens a little bit. Let's let some aperture open and allow some more light into this story. Let's say day at the park. Or we could say at a quaint park in New York. Okay, so now he's in New York. Great. Day. So we could say Stephen and Emily are sitting next to each other. Stephen is on his phone, checked out to his surroundings. And Emily is playing around with a camera and a long-range lens attached. Emily is focused on taking pictures of birds. So this is actually interesting. It's just as I was thinking about my time in New York, so I lived there for almost 5 years. There was a guy that literally did this. I don't remember his name, but he would come out with a really sweet medium, what is it called? Medium format camera and a long range lens, like a telephoto lens. And he would just take pictures of these birds, and it's beautiful, beautiful work. And totally is a hobby. That was not his day work or day job at all. It's just his hobby. So I'm kind of pulling from that, kind of just remembering that there is such a character in the world in New York. And because it's raining, we could almost suggest that this is sort of summer time, like summer into the fall, which, New York is really well known for having those two combining elements. You have a really beautiful day and then boom, rain. So Emily's focused on taking pictures of birds. She says, "Oh my God, this lens is, holy shit. Yeah, it's good." "Good," she says. "Good?" And he'll say, I mean, you've been, no, he said, "Good. It has to be. Has to be good. You've been saving up for it for almost a year. Almost. I'm sure by now. Technology has advanced. "Why do you do that?" She'll say. "Why do you do that? Why do you do that?" "Do what?" "Oop. That," she'll say. "That. What you just did." And he'll say, there's a moment of silent confusion. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. Now, we can also include here, it has to be good. You've been saving up for it for almost a year. I'm sure by now technology has advanced. Now you'll have to save up again. It's a never-ending cycle. We can even add to that. Why do you do that? To what? That, what you just did. I don't know what you're talking about. So she could say, we could say, "I don't know what you're talking about." And she'll say, "You realize that you hardly have anything nice to say, like ever, because I made a comment about because I made a realistic assertion of because I made a realistic observation whatever, dude. No, tell me. I want to fix it. Fix it. Just never mind. Emily goes back to her world, and Stephen is left to his own demise. Okay, so now we've kind of painted this picture of this guy, Stephen. It's not good, but I like it because I know people like this that are just so negative all the time, and they hardly have anything good to say, yet they're in this complacent situationship, where the two people are clearly not meant to be. And so I'm going to stop here because I think it's a good place to break off. But this is really interesting. Again, I kind of want you to remind yourself that, and remind myself too, that this all came from a cool little exercise that I learned from a dear friend of mine in New York. And I've never been able to let it down. I've benefited a lot from this. And as you can see, still, while we're not really sure what's going on, we are being led by really good dialogue. And that's the other thing. When I write dialogue, I try to write it like we can get fancy with words later. But right now I'm just building the bone. So, could I write this in my own voice as a writer, like whatever I feel is good for me and like my voice? Could I rewrite this to be a little bit differently? Yeah. But again, I'm just creating the bone. I'm just giving you snippets. So on the next episode, we're going to continue on. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And we'll see where Stephen and Emily end up by page, I want to say 7. If we don't have an inciting incident happening soon, then we are in trouble. But more on that later. Okay, guys, I'll see you in the next time.